Seducer. Now, the Seducer is a bait that I've been round and round and round and round on from a design standpoint. You know, I like to throw big baits. There's a lot of situations where a bigger body bait, if you're a guy that lives on a lake that contains big forage, like say it has a lot of gizzard shad in it, you know exactly what I mean. There's a lot of times where you can actually get more bites on a larger profile crankbait than you can a smaller profile. Now, for a lot of people, that's hard to fathom, I realize, but those fish will really get keyed in on those bigger shad. And gizzard shad, don't get me wrong, they get substantially bigger than this crankbait, but a bigger profile crankbait, it's 2 7/8, but you might as well say it's a 3-inch bait, very well imitates those bigger bait fish. The problem I have ran into in my life with a lot of your bigger baits, in some situations, let's say like the current 3-inch bait that I make is the bully. And I've caught a lot of fish on the bully, but the bully's designed more to fish in cover. You know, it's a big bodied, fat bait that has a lot of tail kick. It has a fairly wide lip in it so that it can deflect and come through cover very well. You know, the lip is proportionate to the bait. It has a really fast rise, you know, good reverse float, so you can pop your line and snap it out of snag and stuff. And all those things make it awesome if you want a big bait to throw in a lay down tree. But when you run into a body of water that has the need for a big bait and the water clarity is a little bit clearer, the bully to me oftentimes is just too aggressive. It's got too much vibration, it's got too much tail kick, it's too wide, and it's just not, for lack of better words, it's not natural enough. The bully to me is a bait that I use more so than not to generate reaction strikes. Fish are keen on bigger bait. I feel like there's fish in shallow laydowns and things of that nature. The bully's perfect for that. But when I go to a lake that the water's a little bit cleaner and the fish are keen on bigger bait, and say maybe I'm fishing like the face of boat docks or just isolated cover, like there's a stump here. You know, a lot of our lakes are like that. Every lake in the country is not just a shallow water square bill power fisherman's dream. I wanted a bait that fit those scenarios, you know, that clear water. So I've been working on the Seducer for quite some time to have a crankbait that fits that gap. The way I have achieved this, if you look at the Seducer is, from a side view, is very similar to a bully, but it is substantially thinner. It's not near as fat or wide. The other thing you'll notice about the Seducer is its lip. So this is a pretty unique crankbait. I don't know how well you can see it. Can you see it pretty good? If you look at this lip, it's more or less a square bill front. It has a little bit of curve to the front of it. But if you look at it, you see how I have the sides have an inward curve. And what this inward curve does versus just a straight line bill is it takes some of the vibration away from the bait. It takes some of the body roll and some of the thump away from the bait. So you have a bait that is what I like to call toned down. It's a softer, more muted version, swimming action and vibration wise, than a standard square bill crankbait. You're going to see this lip again. I like this lip enough when I finally got it figured out that actually 2 of these baits contain this lip, and I'm really happy with both of them. But the Seducer, for me, you know, I hate to use very specific examples because I don't want people to think that, you know, well, that bait's made for just that lake at that time. But I am going to, in this situation, I'm going to use a lake like, let's say, Lake of the Ozarks. You know, Lake of the Ozarks is full of big gizzard shad. The bottom 2/3 of the lake are normally fairly clear. And believe it or not, it's a great cranking lake. But if you go there in the late summer or fall, most of the time the water clarity is not going to allow you to throw a gizzard shad profile size bait and get a lot of bites unless you have that magic day, which none of us ever seem to get a fish on those magic days when the front's coming in or you got cloud cover and a lot of wind, and you can get away with more aggressive bait. Most of the time when I get to go fishing, it seems like I have less than ideal conditions, and that's the only day that I get to go. So that's when I go. This bait fits that type of scenario perfectly. I need a bigger profile, I want a bigger profile, the fish are keen on bigger profile stuff, but the water's just not stained enough to throw, or there's not, either the water's not stained enough or there's not enough cover in the water to throw a normal 3-inch profile, hard thumping, hard vibrating square bait. That's where the Seducer comes in. Now the other thing about the Seducer, and I wasn't expecting this when I built this bait, but the Seducer, I can actually get the Seducer to run. If I put the Seducer on 12-pound test line and a you know, like a 7'4" or 7'10" cranking rod, or I can make a really long cast with it, I can actually get this bait to run 9 foot, which you would never think just looking at the design of this bait. But there's something about this bill that helps this bait just enable to just keep going and keep going and keep going. When I first took this bait out and tested it, I was blown away at how deep it would go. So now, you take the other application from me for the Seducer. The Seducer is perfect when those fish first go offshore in the summer. Like down there where I live, normally that's May and early June. You know, the fish haven't made it out to the main lake stuff. They've got done spawning, the shad spawn's over. And those fish have kind of started to group up on maybe little shallow bars that are in, you know, 6 to 10 foot of water. I think a lot of times that there's a gizzard shad spawn offshore. They're keying on those bigger bait fish that are spawning on those hard spots. This bait is absolutely killer for that situation, and it's a bait that those fish just don't see, you know. So the Seducer is kind of a 1-2 punch for me. It's a great early post-spawn bait. It's also going to be extremely good bait if you want a bigger profile bait and you live in fish bodies of water that don't give you the opportunity to use, like, say, a bully or the old B3 style. You want a softer, more toned down bait. So that is the Seducer, and the Seducer will be released on day 4, which is going to be Monday. And again, it is 2 7/8 of an inch long. For depth, I've got 5 to 8 foot, because if I'm throwing this around shallow cover, I might throw it on 17 or even 20. That's going to make it be a 5 foot bait. If I'm throwing it offshore on 12, I feel pretty confident I can get a solid 8 foot out of it. And it weighs a ½ ounce, so that offshore fishing, you know, I can really fire this thing out there and get a lot of casting distance out of it, and that's what actually helps it also create that deeper diving depth.